Hey there, team. You are in for a treat today. We have Cami Wanous of the Freedom Scholar with us today. Cami has so much information and wisdom for you. So if you are thinking about homeschooling, know someone who homeschools, or are currently homeschooling and you're like, this feels wonky, you really need to get in touch with Cami and listen today because there is so much that she is going to help us understand and unpack. So Cami, thank you so much for being here. Would you mind introducing yourself a little bit and tell us how you're helping families?
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited because this is such a crux time in homeschooling history. It is the definite momentum is on the upswing, and it is so exciting to see so many new homeschoolers, people who are not only just pulling their kids out from school, but now it's more of we never even thought we wanted to homeschool, and now we're going to get started from K maybe through 12, but at least we're getting started right now. Our kids are never going to go to public school, which is amazing. And you think like, okay, I said that and I'm totally anti-public school, but guess what? I'm a credentialed teacher in California and I have taught high school English. I taught high school English for 7 years before my son was born. He's just about to turn 15. And my husband also teaches. He's a middle school teacher. He teaches language arts, Lego robotics, STEM, things like that. And my mom is a retired teacher. So literally we have teaching in our blood and the
You
public
know what's up.
education in there too. I totally know it. And when people ask us why we homeschool, we always say, because we know it from the front and the back.
Hmm.
We know it from inside and out. And so when I was homeschooling for a really long time and this whole school shutdown thing happened, parents started freaking out. And I was like, I can help these people. I have a pretty unique situation in which I have experience in public education, but I also know a lot about homeschooling. So I can help people direct them towards what the best choice would be for them because they were just, well, are we going to homeschool? Are we going to do independent study? Are we going to do distance learning? Are we going to, then they were just freaking out about it. And rightly so, it's just a very crazy time.
It's
So
overwhelming.
just trying to do what's best for their kids. And my poor husband was distance learning, distance teaching. And that was, I saw it from that end too. That was horrible. But it was really something that I felt called like I really needed to help these people. And it just morphed into me doing exactly what I've always wanted to do, which is to help families as a whole really come together and help them in education. I have a passion for education. I have a passion for freedom. And I know that if we raise our kids and raise them with a passion and love of learning, that they are going to be lifelong learners and they are going to go out in the world and change the world for the better in their unique way, using their unique gifts and talents. And that is what I'm all about. So now I help
Yes.
parents do that. And I couldn't be more happy about it.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay, so if you can't already tell, Cami and I get along really well. we we are on the same wavelength with a lot of this stuff, and so I love the background. Again, as a public school teacher myself, I know what this looks like, and again, we homeschool our own kids. Why? Yes, for those reasons, and so I completely feel this. So if you guys are, I was a public school kid as well, so there's a lot of kind of mystery going into it. And I always wanted to know, like, I just want to be a fly on the wall. Like, what does this look like in people's homes? So, what are some of the myths that kind of float around when people are toying with the idea of homeschooling?
Oh
What do
my
you see
gosh,
come to
there
the
are so
forefront?
many, but there
Yeah.
are a few big ones that
Mhm.
everybody's like, what about that whole socialization thing,
Ding,
right?
ding, ding.
Ding, ding, ding. And that's something you often get from like your spouse or your family members or close friends. They're like, they're going to be weird. And
Mhm.
you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not locking them away in a bubble for crying out loud. Like we go to the grocery store, like we go to there. And one of the things I always tell people in families I'm working with, especially new families, is that the real definition of of socialization
Socialization.
is to be able to communicate with and have relationships with people of all ages. The school environment is a contrived environment and it is something where it's you'll never see anywhere else.
Yep.
It is something that's a social unique situation. And
Hmm.
so it's really real life is interacting with people. And you always know homeschoolers and homeschool kids when the cashiers or at the store, or if anybody else is talking to them, the adults or whatever age, the homeschool kids will talk to them in the eyes,
Hmm.
and they won't be shy about it most of the time. I mean, you do get introverted kids, but for the most part, they're like, "Oh yeah, no, 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 no," because they're used to talking to people of all ages and interacting with people. My son's an only child, and he would talk to everyone, and he was all about playing with kids of any age. He doesn't care how old they are. It didn't even bother him at all. Oh, those little kids. He was never like that. It was just always in front of him. So that's a really big one.
Yeah.
And another myth I is a systematic myth that is both in homeschooling and in public education. And I feel like this is something that really harps on us a lot as parents, because we feel like, "Oh, I'm not a teacher.
Hmm.
I'm not a teacher." And I used to hear all the time, "You can homeschool because you're a teacher." And I was like, high school never taught anybody how to read.
To read,
Okay. They
yeah.
did not come to my class if they didn't know how to read. And
Yeah.
so that was really something I had trepidations about. And I was like, but I was like, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. That's something, we'll just figure it out. And so you have to have faith, and you have to have, it is a leap of faith. Homeschooling is a leap of faith. You just have to know that it's going to be okay, and you can get resources and get information where you need it. But yes, but teaching, you are a teacher. You're a parent. You're a teacher. Teachers are parents, and parents are teachers. And if you are watching this, you are a teacher because you want to be intentional about what you're doing with your kids. And yes, not all parents are teachers. Some of them are not so great, but that is, if you're watching this, you are not one of them.
Right.
So that is something that I feel is really important for people to understand, that the educational system separates us from teaching academic things that we're not qualified to do versus actually, yes, you are qualified, because guess what? If you don't know it, you can learn it together. I
Right.
told so many things I've learned from my son
Yeah.
just from his interest alone. It is absolutely crazy. I ask him questions all the time. When I asked him a question about something scientific the other day, that we were watching something, and I was like, I don't understand what they're saying. What is that? When they say radiation, like, what does that mean? Like, and so he pauses the thing and he tells me, "Mommy." Okay. He says, "We're going to," he says,
Oh my gosh.
he says, "You have to understand energy, and you have to understand wavelengths, and you have to understand that this is he goes all the way down, radio waves all the way up to radiation, and this is our visible light, and da da da, it's all light waves and blah blah blah." And I'm like,
Wow.
"Okay, that's good to know."
Wow.
But that's what it's so like, and it's so
Yeah.
much fun when you're like,
Yes.
"I don't have any idea," but your kid does, and it's really great. You didn't teach him that. You didn't teach him that.
Exactly. Well, and these in particular are so key because they bring up two key points. Number one, you're equipping kids to then go out and discover. We're interested in creating and developing lifelong learners, not just somebody
Absolutely.
who can recall from a textbook. So if we don't know, we model what that looks like to go find the information, or have your child teach you something, which happens all the time. And then the second thing is the idea of resources. What a time to homeschool, because there is so much free low cost stuff out there, as well as the higher cost stuff, but it just depends on what you need at the time. And the great part is it changes possibly every year what your child needs. And so you can, go the long haul. That's what our family's done. We've used the same curriculum and it's worked really well, but you can change as you need to. So there are so many things that we can just myth bust here. But let's take it back to kind of somebody who says, okay, I'm willing to take on those hard questions of socialization and stuff like that, but I'm ready to take that step. What type of limiting beliefs have you kind of seen people wrestle with as they begin? Could be doubts in themselves. Any others that kind of come up repeatedly in the families that you work with?
So many, and I'm so glad that you were talking about this, because it's something that is one of the first checkpoints that I go over in the Freedom Scholar Roadmap and the Homeschool Success Club, because you have to tackle those limiting beliefs before you can really start planning and making sure that the ladder's leaning against the right wall and we're climbing that ladder and it's there and we can actually do this. And that confidence that you get from just attacking those limiting beliefs is everything. And so when we talk about limiting beliefs, there's so many things. From one, I'm not a teacher. Homeschooling, we don't have enough money. Homeschooling costs a lot, right? And which it doesn't have to. We've already talked about that. It's so amazing. And I did a whole talk on that in our YouTube channel. And it's so incredible the resources that you can get. There's also I didn't go to college. I don't know enough. But yes, you do. And like we already talked about, you can learn together, which is really amazing. And then also, I hear sometimes, I don't speak English as my first language. How can I teach my kids?
Yeah.
Well, you can learn together. And there are resources all the time. So, and I think it's such a blessing. That's such a blessing for them to learn two languages. I mean, you're such
we do this. Yeah.
Yes, that's what you do.
Biliterate. We do biliterate homeschooling. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. So
and
stuff
it
is
works.
out there and in both languages. So if you do need both and a support in another language, often there is kind of a pairing there. Which is really cool.
Those are huge ones. And everybody has their own limiting beliefs, in terms of, well, I don't have enough time. That's another huge one. And time is really, have to look at how much time do they waste during the regular school day at school.
Yes,
And
go there.
Melissa and I know about that because I've talked to many third grade teachers, and Melissa can attest to this, that in third grade, they're getting about 2 hours of active learning time during the day. So they're there for 6+ hours and they're learning for 2. And so the rest of the time is transition time from activity to activity. It's breaks, it's direction giving, it's questions. You're answering questions. You're doing classroom management, discipline stuff. You're also doing, how long does it take to get out a piece of paper, right? Sometimes that takes a long time. And you're also waiting. It's wait time, waiting for other people to finish. I know that can be really frustrating with gifted kids who are, ahead of kind of just readiness. And they're like, man, this is really boring, So they can move on in homeschooling and you can go at their own pace. And it's such a beautiful thing when you take all of that extra out and you think it's so overwhelming. How am I going to, are my kids going to even listen to me? My kids don't even like listening to me. Well, you're not going to like this, but do you want it to be that way?
Yeah.
Most people don't. It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
And when you're both loving learning, it's a totally different story.
It comes together. Yeah. And that, again, coming back to that, how much are we doing? It can be a shock to the system when you finish schoolwork in 2 hours in the morning. That's about what we do, maybe 3, but it's all that you need to do. And the rest of the day, if we give kids a little bit of freedom to explore their interests, to take some of those, what might be like an elective or a special in school, music, art, kind of tech ed, home ec stuff. Yeah, have them make lunch with you. Have them pull up a cookbook. Have them make something with you. Have them sew all those socks that need to be sewn. Like all the things that our kids have done over the past, this summer, really, we really expanded a little bit more. And I feel like I kind of let go of some control there. And I was like, heck yeah, you just go do it. And we'll see what happens. And it might be a disaster, but it might be edible in some cases. And this is where the learning happens, though. And I love seeing that sort of thing. And so I saw the quote recently, like, please, something to the effect of like, please don't grade it. Please don't make it a class. I just want to love it. I just want to enjoy it.
I am all about, please don't give your kids grades before high school for anything.
Yeah.
No reason to. Not at all. Never met anybody where it needed to happen. So before high school, no grades. And I did want, that brings up a huge topic, which is what I call the educational should. The educational should is that idea that what if my kids fall behind? Well, they should be learning this at this age, at this grade. There's these topics we have to cover. What all of these shoulds in your mind, we're not doing enough. We should be doing more. And Melissa and I both know we've been trained both professionally and by society
Mhm.
that this is a should that needs to happen in our life. And it took me a good solid 6 years to unlearn this should, to where I feel like, and it creeps in every now and then. And
Mhm.
I quickly let it reframe, let it go, because I know now, but it's really something that you have to unlearn and you have to let go. And I do a whole talk on this, the educational should in the podcast. And it's so important for you to let that go, because it can kill your love of learning. And there's very quickly, when there's a should, there's some kind of a bar that we have to hit. It's very important. If we don't hit it, we're all failures. That's you don't want to,
Yeah.
you're not a
Well,
failure either.
exactly. And I think part of it is, not feeling that failure, not letting that reflect, to your child, oh, they're not getting this. Oh, we're failing. It's plateaus. And we've seen this. I've seen this very recently with one of our kids is great, 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 great. What is happening? What is happening? Why isn't this clicking? And then boom shakalaka, it just takes off. But there's just these moments, and they're beautiful opportunities for us to point out, hey, remember when you used to really struggle and it would take like an hour to get this done, and you just did it in like 10 minutes? What does that tell you about what you've learned? What does that tell you about what you're able to do now? And it's so cool to see that kind of register, and you take that learning into the next step. Whatever they're learning next, you say, great, what are some of these things that we can do to already prime you for making progress? Great. We could break something down into smaller steps. We could give you a couple different outlets for showing what you've learned instead of writing paragraph after paragraph. Maybe we could do a little bit artsy thing. Maybe we could do a performance aspect. Maybe we could have you explain it verbally. That's totally fine. But giving kids that opportunity, I think, is huge. So just letting go. If we can just
Oh,
all
I
be
love that.
Elsa for a second.
Letting it go,
Yeah.
and really just letting it go, not, forcing. The more you force it, the one thing I hated about public school, well, there was a lot of things, but one thing that I hated about public school is remedial classes. Like, oh, goody. Let's send the kids who are already feeling unsuccessful to more unsuccessfulness, and then let's take away all the things that are fun because they don't have time for electives in their schedule. So now they have to do a remedial class and have more of what they already don't feel successful in. And they're labeled the dumb kid and they're labeled the whatevers. And even if it's only themselves being labeled, but it's not. And it's that whole thing. And being the readiness is really, I think what you were talking about is being ready and having that ability to let go when they're not. And it's so huge. I've been through that so many times with my son in so many different areas. And literally, I kid you not, he is downstairs right now editing the first draft of he already edited, but he's doing the revision of his first draft. He spent 5.5 hours writing yesterday on his own. He came up with the idea. He was inspired to write. I want to write my own opinion. We had a plan for the day of what we were going to do. Nope, I don't
Yeah.
care, because this kid was on fire. I've been excited about this. I really want to write my own opinion piece about AI and alignment and all the stuff that he's learning about in his AI course. And he says, I just have a lot of things to say. And I'm like, go ahead.
Same.
Literally, he didn't. I'm like calling him down. Buddy, you got to eat dinner at some point. It's
Yeah.
like 7:30 at night. Buddy, you got to eat dinner. I'm almost done. I'm almost done. Let me just give me a few more minutes.
Oh my
This
gosh.
this from a kid
Yeah.
who has written very little in
Mm,
homeschooling,
mm,
because writing was difficult for him and he wasn't ready for a very long time. And so I had to that was hard for me as an English
yeah.
teacher to let that go.
Yeah.
And I really had to let it go. And literally now he's writing 3 pages, single space. And let me tell you, I have read a lot of high school
Yeah.
students' work, and it is phenomenal for a first
Oh,
draft. And he's self-edited. I didn't tell
yeah.
him what to edit on there.
Oh my gosh, I love it. That's huge. I hope you can celebrate that. That's huge. But I mean, and I want to applaud you from the back end because you've let go of the rest of the day. I think a lot of people would say, yeah, but stop now. You can put a bookmark in it. You'll do it later. We have to do, yeah, or whatever.
And I don't mean later tonight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Later.
Another time. Next
Yeah.
week is fine.
Yes.
But there's these black holes of learning, and I love these examples with your son with 4 kids. we often have this like kind of family style learning where our second grader was learning about physical and political maps yesterday. And then at lunch, I happened to have like a Johnny Harris like news video open about like maps in China or something. And he was like, "Hey, this guy has maps." And I was like, "Oh, actually, this video isn't necessary for you guys, but let's look at this one about Switzerland where there's a bunch of bunkers. Remember on your physical map, you're coloring brown for the crinkly mountain area? Let's look at what's in those bunkers in this mountainous place in the world." And then we talk about that. And then my 11-year-old's reading about World War II. And then we get into World War II. And we're just like, amazing. This is all kind of snowballing. And when you can find this, great, flexible
Rabbit trail.
rabbit hole. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of learning that can happen. And I think it opens up a good example for later on in life. Curious mind, maybe, is what we're getting at,
Absolutely.
is to kind of foment that. So I love it. Now, I feel like we need to sidestep a little bit because there are those people screaming at us, but my state requires testing, my state requires a portfolio, whatever. What do you do with that? Because that's not something I actually deal with as a licensed teacher in Virginia. I don't have any oversight, for better or for worse. What is some of the stuff that people should look at when they're trying to deal with the actual red tape that they really do need to deal with at some point?
Yeah, they do need to deal with it. And you know what? The beauty of homeschooling in almost every single state, or I've never even seen a state that has testing and has portfolios that have required a specific standard to meet. Typically, all of them require growth, improvement, and an acceptable improvement, and whatever that means. But they don't specify that, right? So it's improvement. And if they don't improve, then what they usually have to do is create a plan for improvement, right? Who cares?
Not a big deal.
Who cares? Not a big deal. Put all your stuff in a binder, put all your stuff in a portfolio, have them take the test, make it, make it just meaningless for them and just say, do your best, whatever. This is just one of the boxes we have to check. Right.
Yeah.
And who cares? Just gives us, and it does give you good feedback about,
Mhm.
improvement or whatnot. But really, it's just about improvement for the most part. So if you come across something that's like, we have to hit a certain level of standard,
Mhm.
and the only time I've seen that is with kids with special needs when they're not if they're in a charter school and teacher their teacher is making them hit or encouraging them and really encouraging them to
Mhm.
hit this standard of reading level or math level or something like that, in which case I say ditch your charter or
Mm.
ditch your school because your kid is at a different place and needs something different. And so there's a lot of pressure that can be put on. I've seen that a lot lately, especially with the exodus from public education teacher wise,
Yeah.
and teachers coming out. And what they're doing is a lot of them are going into charter schools as charter mentors and charter teachers. And
Mhm.
that creates that they're bringing that educational should with them.
Mhm.
And so that pressure is being put on. So you really have to just check with the charter and maybe find a different CT or something like that. But, and just talk with them. Be like, look, this is my standard. This is where we are. This is where we're at. And be an advocate for your child and don't let them make you feel bad about it because it's not something you need to feel bad about. Improvement. That's all you're looking for. It's not a big deal.
That's really important. That's a good word. Okay. So improvement is the word of the day. Progress is the word of the day. And I think that's a very wise thing to kind of operate by, because year to year, they might do super well in one area and we might buy second grade curriculum and they might fly through it in a few months. Do I rush them to third grade? If you want, if they're happy and they're flying through, that's great. Or take some time and do something else. We did this with one of ours and they finished their language arts super early. And then I was like, great, let's pick out some books. What books do you want to do? What book studies do you want to do? And we'll do that for a few months. We'll work on some writing. So there's a lot of different kind of twists and turns. And the books, the curriculum, they're nice guides. However, it's not the end all be all. So I think progress, flexibility, is
Yeah.
really important. Let's
And
talk.
one of my mantras is homeschooling is learning through life. So it's important to put that in there. It's not just about textbooks, and you don't have to finish the textbook every year. You
Say
don't
that.
have to.
Yeah. And you don't have to do everything in the textbook either. I mean,
No, we skip
I
around
omit.
all the time.
Is this a sin to say to a former high school English teacher? But I don't make them diagram sentences. If they know
Oh,
what the
no.
adjective is in the sentence, I'm fine. Skip it, girl. So we move on. But
You can do that in college.
yeah, yeah. Okay, let's talk real quick about family trajectory. Thinking about where a family is going, what values your family has. How have you seen that work really well? Feel free to use examples here. I know for our family living abroad, we're from the US, but we live abroad, being able to travel on non-peak times is boom, really important for us. So that's one of our values that kind of guides our homeschool. What have you seen in terms of family trajectory and how that's really played out well?
You know what? Homeschooling is the best way to bring your family together. And one of the things I talk about the most is that nobody talks about the benefits of homeschooling being that your family relationships can be amazing. Like amazing, amazing, like more amazing than you ever thought possible amazing. And the depth as my son gets older, the depth of conversations we have, the thinking, the the value the value learning, the morals, the conflict resolution, the just talk using examples from current events, using examples from what's happening right now in his life and you know between us or conflicts he's having as he's getting older and there's puberty and there's all these things and the hormones and the just so many things. The depth of conversations we have are absolutely phenomenal. Sometimes we just literally one of my favorite things to do, we used to do every single night was I would lay down with him right before bed and we would just talk for over an hour sometimes about and my husband's like, "What are you doing?" Like he needs to go to bed. You need to go to bed. And I was like, we just solved the world's problems, man. I'm
Yeah.
just telling you. Like we went to everywhere and did everything and we talked about all kinds of stuff. You get to transfer your stories to your kids and your own family history and your own family culture and then learn about using your neighbors around you and people around you to really fill in those gaps and learn about other things. We have one neighbor who's Jewish and they celebrate Christmas and Hanukkah. So because her husband's Christian and she's
Mhm.
Jewish, so I was like, I actually don't know that much about Hanukkah. I would love for you to teach Kenyon a little bit about it, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, we can come over. He can light a candle. We'll do the prayer. We'll do this. I'm like, please tell him everything. Like,
Yeah.
tell him everything. This is amazing. I love
Yeah.
this." And so we did this whole thing. It's being able to learn. I also say learning happens everywhere all the time. So learning happens everywhere all the time. And what you said about making sure that we're climbing the right ladder and the ladder's leaning against the right wall is something that we talk about in the Homeschool Success Club a lot, where I walk
Mhm.
people through really what are your values? What is your end goal? Starting with the end in mind. Who do you want your kids to be? And what kind of skills do you want them to have? What do you want them to know? And more importantly, who do you want them to be? But that is your goal. And then getting them there is such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's huge. Huge, huge. One impactful phrase was when somebody said, "Who do you want your kids? Think about who you want your future in-laws to. What do you want them to be attracted to about your kids? Is it because they got a 1600 on the SAT? Is it because they, went to so and so school or got this accomplishment? Probably not. Like, it probably won't be relevant by that point. It's their character. It's who they are, and so I think that's huge. Which wall is this ladder on and why are we climbing it? Are we going the right direction? Absolutely. Okay. Gosh, we could talk about this for days.
I know.
Tammy, you have so much going on. Tell us a little bit about where people can get in touch with you and how they can work with you. What types of things are you offering to families and where can they find you?
Well, the biggest thing I love to do is to help families get started. And even if families are already homeschooling, I love helping them create their family's best homeschool experience because every family is unique. Every family has a different schedule. Every family has different needs. And different kids.
Mhm.
So using the checkpoints in the Freedom Scholar roadmap that I have in our Homeschool Success Club, I help walk people through just really setting up what those things are and really defining it for themselves. We have live Q&As every single month. We also have lessons that we go through. And then we also have a whole bunch of like work printables things that can help you walk through every single step of that. I'm also creating a homeschool success mastery course, which we are going to see Melissa in too. I'm super excited about that because I want to help you if you've already been homeschooling. What are those things that a lot of people don't talk about that you have to look everywhere for? So we're going to pull them all these experts in the same place. We're going to have Denise Thomas talking about scholarships and all these other people talking about all these amazing things that they're experts at and pulling them so you can create mastery in subject matters, create mastery in core subjects as well, and leadership development and also in entrepreneurship, in scholarship applications, transcripts, gifted learning, right? And special needs. All of these different topics we're going to pull together. And it's even if you're not, kids aren't going to college, there's going to be counseling on that too with Donovan Dreyer. I'm so excited about that. And then I go live every single week on Thursdays in my Facebook group, YouTube channel, and we also have a podcast as well. So, and there's amazing guests like Melissa, and I'm so excited to bring all this information. My whole point is just to add value to you and your family.
And it does. So yours is now in my podcast rotation, which I'm very serious about curating. So it is so helpful, you guys. If you're at all on the homeschool radar, then you need to be paying attention to this. So Cami, I am so grateful for your time. I do have one question that we always end with. What is one thing that you're loving right now about being in this education homeschool space?
I am loving helping families I'm loving the fact that there's families that are saying we're not even going to go to public school. We're just going to start schooling right now, and I'm loving the parents that are really getting their intention in front of themselves. So they're saying, I don't know a lot about this. I'm going to get ahead. I'm going to start researching. I'm going to get some help. I'm going to start learning. And so I can help my kids in the best way. And I love that because parents are really taking ownership of their kids' education. And it is only going to create the best, amazing, great education and the best learners out there in the world. It's going to be so fun. And I love watching that happen.
Oh, I love it too. All right. Well, thank you so much. You guys make sure you head over and check out what Cami is working on. And Cami, thank you so much again. You guys, if nobody has told you yet today, thank you for what you're doing. It is important. Happy teaching.
Absolutely.